People are slowly dropping in, so I'm also slowly going to start this meeting to give everybody the opportunity to be there when the real talks start. It's great to see that we already have quite some people entering the room are interested in the topic of today, which is sustainability of project outputs. Maybe I should start with the next slide to slowly warm you up. So before I do that, I will, of course, first introduce myself. My name is Ingrid Dillo. I am the project coordinator of the Fair Impact project, and I will chair this session today. We are supported by Maaike Verburg from DANS, who will be taking notes of this meeting, but we will ask your help with that as well. And we have Rita at the background taking care of all the technology. Here you see the structure of the workshop series of this year, and you can see that we are at the second session of the series, and you can also see that there are still a couple of very interesting sessions to come this month, one on persistent identifiers, one on legal and organizational interoperability, one on trustworthy and fair enabling repositories, and finally one on metadata semantics and interoperability. So please take notice of the dates and the times if you're interested, and you can find more information on the Fair Impact website about these other sessions that are still to come. If we go to the next slide, I have some practical information around this session. First of all, to let you know that this session, as you will have noticed, will be recorded. I hear a lot of background noise. Somebody has his mic open. Can you please close that? Thank you. So the session is recorded, and we're going to use the recordings for internal use because we also want to write a report based on what we hear today. This recording will not be publicly shared on the website, so that you know that. Secondly, as we always have in the Synchronization Workshop series, we work with a spreadsheet where we collect information from all of you. And we also have a note-taking document. Maaike will be writing there, but anybody else can contribute to that document as well. The idea is that in the spreadsheet, we keep the information really short and factual, including links where possible, and be careful not to mess with the cells in the spreadsheet. That makes people very anxious. If you want to add more information, you can also do that in the note-taking document. Links to these two documents you can also find in the chat. These documents will also remain open after this session. So if you want to add information after today, you can also do so and are very much invited to do so until the 7th of November, when we will close these documents, because then we will close the series and we need to work on the final reporting. So on the next slide, you see what we do with the results from all of these sessions. The plan is that we will produce a report based on all the sessions by the end of this year, and that is will be a report like we have done before. And here you see the link to the one that we wrote upon the basis of the sessions we had last year. And finally, we will bring the 3 reports from the 3 years of workshop series together. And from that, we will extract recommendations and findings that will form the basis for a white paper that will be published in spring of next year. And of course, we hope that that will create also some impact, because we hope to come up with recommendations and findings for different groups of stakeholders in that report. So then about today, if I can see the next slide, the program of the day. We are very lucky that we have no less than 3 conversation starters for the topic of today, the sustainability of project outputs, coming, I think, from different perspectives. We have two contributions from the European Commission, and it is, of course, very interesting and important for, I think, for projects, and also other initiatives to hear what the funder expects from us in terms of sustainability, and of course the possibilities that they offer. And the third speaker today comes from the EOSC Association, which of course is also a very important player when it comes to creating sustainability, of providing opportunities for sustaining project outputs. So after that, there is some time for questions and answers, and then we will move over to a broader discussion with all of you, where we really hope to come to some new insights and new shared knowledge also, and expertise about what we can do to make sure that all the work that we do and also all the money that goes into that is also sustained into the future. So without me talking any longer, I suggest we go over to our first speaker, and that is Blagovesta Kolova, who is the project officer of Impact and works at RIA at the European Commission. Blago, go ahead.
Thank you. There was a typo in my name. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, Ingrid, to this workshop, which is very important, I think, because we often forget or somehow do not, let's say, allocate enough time to think about sustainability. I mean, we go through the project, you deliver some results, and then at the end of the project, finally, we often forget to think about how to make the results sustainable over time. So I would like to share some thoughts on this in my intervention today to open the discussion, and of course, hope to hear more from your side in more detail. Thanks. Next slide. So what is project sustainability? I have found one of the definitions that have been used over the years. I don't think we have a new one, but generally when the European Commission funds some grants, they define sustainability as a project being sustainable when it continues to deliver benefits to project beneficiaries or community as a general for an extended period after Commission's financial assistance. This means after the grant has been finished, concluded. And this also means that it has a broader impact than the project itself to the community, in your case, to to various research communities over time. So this is what we are looking for. And when we talk about sustainability of a project, this is how we define it. Next slide. Now, I wanted to share some thoughts also on what it really means for a project to be sustainable. There are, in my view, three different types of sustainability that could be somehow defined when we look specifically into projects. First, we have the project results and outcomes. This is more in terms of a product that the project is offering to the community, to the society as a whole. It could be guidelines, it could be standards in your case, it could be rule books, etc., that could be used afterwards after the project has ended. But this is a specific outcome, and it usually is within the deliverables of the project. Next type of sustainability is more about the process, is the sustainability of the newly established communities or practices and modes of working, which in your case, of course, is fair data and the way scientific communities of researchers in different disciplines would adopt fair practices that have been developed by this project, but also other projects funded under the topics of not only EOSC, but also in other programs. So it's a general, let's say, effort to make the use of fair data as the new standard in the research communities. So the sustainability of this, let's say, community of practice on fair data and the general adoption of these rules by the communities, the second, let's say, sustainable outcome of this project that goes beyond the specific guidelines that you would provide, and it will be more on the adoption of the principles that would be, of course, later on developed and taken forward by the communities themselves. So that's the second type of sustainability that we could think of. And of course, the third type of sustainability is what we expect in terms of policy impact. Fair impact is among the projects that have been funded for a specific purpose. And it's not only for building EOSC and integrating scientific communities into EOSC and adopting fair principles and practices all over EOSC, but it's also because it's a general priority of the European Commission. It has been for a long time already to make data accessible to the larger public. This has been a priority for already a long time, and I think the progress that we have achieved in the last decade, I would say, thanks also to some technological improvements, was really great, because we are at the forefront of such developments if we compare worldwide share of scientific data and research. So the policy impact related to EOSC, related to ERA action plan, related to other initiatives that are connected with these principles is also very important. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. Thank you. So this is a very nice outline of the expected outcomes and key impact pathways of the Fair Impact project. I took it from the technical part of the project itself. I think it very nicely summarizes the different types of impact and the way the outcomes would provide this impact for, of course, the scientific community, but more generally for society and for Europe. And I think it's very nicely summarized here. It might look a bit complex, but there are lots of streams, let's say, in order to achieve those impacts. And if I have divided them into three main groups, you could see easily all the different sorts of smaller, let's say, more detailed impacts that are expected from this project, summing up to some general, let's say, policy goals and initiatives, to some of the Sustainable Development Goals as well, and to a general idea that we would improve research and research added value for society by providing open data and open source research to the public. So that's the main, I think, outcome of adopting fair principles within the scientific community. So I think this project is very important because it's one of the steps that we're taking forward, and we are hoping that by this we will achieve also greater impact in terms of in different areas, not only in open science, open infrastructures, but also for environment, for all the purposes and also the challenges that we face, and where we think that science can make a difference and and provide us with some answers that we can adopt later on in policy for the larger public. So I think this is very important to keep in mind, because often we tend to somehow go into more detailed questions about the challenges we do face with open data, and we forget that actually the biggest idea of it all still is and was and will be to create open data and open science, open for all European citizens and even beyond. So this is, I think, why Fair Impact Project is one of the very important projects in this addressing the specific field of fair data for society. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So I try to somehow summarize the idea of the three types of, let's say, sustainability that the project would achieve after its end. Of course, it follows the defined outcomes and impact in the work program through which this project has been funded along with other projects. But if we focus on fair impact specifically, And if we want to summarize a bit the big table that I had just shown, it means that we would expect as an outcome an increased fairness of research data and useful guidance, of course, and best practices, so that new communities or researchers that just enter the field could refer to and should not go through all the lengthy process of making their data open. There is already some guidance, some principles, some standards, hopefully to be adopted by the larger community. So now we hope that in terms of specific outcomes from this project, some recommendations and best practices and guidelines could emerge. Also, of course, there is a shift in the way the community would perceive their own research results and their own role in society, if more generally, if we could say, because the uptake and compliance with FAIR principles from different scientific communities and the adoption of FAIR standards for FAIR data would then have a greater impact on society, because open data, as we know, contributes also to innovation, to major breakthroughs in science, and makes it more accessible to the general public. We often forget that it's not only about researchers, it's also about the average citizen who is interested in a specific topic and would maybe like to know a bit more on how data is collected, how it is processed, and to, of course, access the results of the specific studies. So that is very important also to, in terms of process and in terms of practice, to adopt these new principles in a largest possible scale. Of course, for different communities, some are very advanced already in the fairness of their practices, some are just starting, but we are confident that with the global, let's say, guidance and standard for all the scientific communities in different fields, we would come with, let's say, a general shared practice that we could use for different, let's say, fields and different challenges that they face, but it will be a common one. And of course, as I mentioned, I think the next speaker will tell us more about the policy contribution of FAIR Impact Project for the SRIA, the EOSC-SRIA actions, several of them dedicated to the FAIR principles and data, but also the ERA action plan and the general impact of research and innovation on society we just talked about. So I will not come back to this. Next slide, please. So what would be the FAIR impact legacy as we would like to see it project-wise? It would be first, of course, to address the remaining challenges for fairness of data, PIDs, interoperability. I think later on we'll hear more about the specific, let's say, problems that we still face for making data completely open and interoperable. But also, I think the important link as a legacy of FAIR Impact Project will be that research disciplines and communities would share common standards and practices. As I said, they will talk to each other much more than in the past, and they will also enrich each other with solutions that they have come up with for FAIR data. And this is very valuable. Of course, the contribution to EOSC, the present and future. I think the communities are very much involved into EOSC, and we'll hear more about the EOSC Association and the way forward on this a bit later. But I think it's very important because FAIR data is one of the backbones of EOSC. EOSC would not be possible without it. So this is a very important contribution and would be a very important legacy for FAIR Impact. And then, of course, as I said, building an open science fair culture among research communities. This would be the important legacy. It's not only linking communities, but it's also building this culture and this sharing the same value, let's say, system. Because this was by no means something of a straightforward process. 10 years ago, when we started working on EOSC in the Commission, I remember still the reluctance of many of scientific communities, but also even among colleagues, that this would ever be possible to be achieved, to have an open data flowing from researchers, because for decades before this process has started, researchers used to build their careers precisely on their data. and they used to keep it very, let's say, with a limited access, almost private, because they were working like as if it's a personal, let's say, data that cannot be shared or should be shared after some years' time. So now we have achieved, I think, a bit of a shift in the consciousness also of researchers that has seen the common interest of sharing data and sharing knowledge among each other and working together also across disciplines, using interoperable data to achieve better results. So I think this shift is very important, and 10 years ago it would be unthinkable, the results that we have achieved, and it's thanks to projects such as Fair Impact that we have done this little by little and step by step in the previous years. I will end my intervention there. I hope I have kept the time. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that I have given you some ideas and thought for debate later on, and happy to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blago, for this presentation, which was extremely useful also for us. I mean, the end of our project is nearing, so it's also good to hear what the funder expects from our project. That's great. I think if there are questions or comments, please try to remember them, because we will have a bit of time after the 3 presentations to ask the presenters to answer your questions. But let's first move over to another part of the Commission, to DG Research and Innovation. Katrien Winkler is going to talk to us about their perspective on sustainability.
Yes, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I will try to complement a bit what we just heard from Blago Vesta and put it also a bit into a broader EOS context, I would say. If you put it, yeah, thank you very much. Coming back, I mean, this is all everybody who's involved in this project coordination or participates in the procedures of the project knows that we have some very general tools in order towards maintaining or preserving data knowledge and towards sustainability in general. And mainly this is being actually more on the side of Blago Vesta actually than on our side. So we have, of course, supporting and guiding measures for the project management through reporting rules and guidelines. You know, these are all continuous reporting modules, periodic reporting modules, and then the final report. We have also guidance on communication, dissemination, and exploitation. Exploitation was just mentioned is probably the most important for the question on sustainability of project results. And then, of course, all the different platforms and measures in order to communicate your project results, like the ROS and dashboards and so on. Next slide, please. So that's why I won't put much emphasis on these very general measures. If you go a step back, so not to the project, not for the slide, but from the systematics, from the project stage to the proposal stage, then you see everybody who has applied already for funding at the Commission in the Infra-EOS calls. You will see that apart from the very general requirements like expertise and excellence and so on, we have also very general requirements towards, I would say, sustainability, which goes to, for instance, enhance synergies within the EOS ecosystem, to strengthen collaboration, to interact with stakeholders and multipliers, to capitalize from previously funded projects, very important. We have a very concrete additional sub-criterion for impact, which is directed towards the extent to which the proposed work incorporates the necessary coordination efforts and resources with other relevant projects and the European Open Science Cloud governance structure in the context of our EOS partnership. And very specifically, of course, we are asking you to provide explicit sustainability measures to be outlined in your proposal that is being evaluated with the guidance of our colleagues at the agency. Next slide, please. Then we have another measure to support sustainability in a way that we also fund coordination actions. And one of those coordination actions have been EOSC Focus, for instance. Another one has been launched for proposal submission in the beginning of this year to have kind of a follow-up of EOSC Focus. That is not only providing support for further implementation of the Pan-European Cooperation Framework, but also towards the coordination of the individual projects that has been funded, that are currently running, and that will be funded in the future. So very specifically, these are points from the call text that were published end of last year. We are asking the project to support coordination and synergies between the activities of the association and its members, and of further initiatives and EU-funded projects, and then also to strengthen collaboration and alignment within the portfolio of EU-funded projects, activities conducted, of course, by the association and its members, but also by other initiatives that contribute to the objectives and to the EOSC sphere. Next slide, please. One sustainability result, and this is only one of very many, I think we have seen in all the projects which we have been funding, is, for instance, also that came out of the EOSC Focus project, the EOSC Implementation Macro Roadmap. That is an initiative of our partnership implemented by EOSC Focus, and here the aim is to show the contribution of the partnership's investments to deliver into the EOSC sphere. It's an interactive tool, it's a continuously updated tool, and the results are mapped over time and categorized according to the contribution to the sphere. Next slide, please. Now, sustainability, of course, one might think of, or the reality is of our funding procedures that we don't have direct renewal projects or renewal calls for renewal. But you see from this slide that it's not that there's no logic in our funding activities, and this logic brings also ourselves closer to enhancing sustainability. The logic is that we build our funding procedures on the sphere on the one hand side, but also on the multi-annual roadmaps that are being updated every year. And we receive also input by various stakeholders, mainly by the association, in outlining our call for proposals. In that sense, you see that although we have no classical renewal calls or renewal projects, that we are funding with respect to the different objectives of the sphere. For instance, we have a variety of projects in the area of fair implementation, in the area of enabling open science. We are funding a lot of projects for fostering use cases. They are the mentioned support measures for the EOSC partnership, like Focus, for instance, but also towards the set of the EOSC federated infrastructure. So all these kind of strategic consideration also are kind of a way to foster sustainability on the midterm, on the mid and long term level. Next slide, please. One other instrument where we can also speak of a measure to sustainability is probably the possibility to allow for cascading funds. In general, cascading funds is an instrument to simplify granting procedures and to increase the autonomy in distributing related funds with the aim to increase benefit and purposeful provide funds. But also, I mean, in the way we allow for granting our beneficiaries to distribute funding to a broader pool of beneficiaries or recipients, we allow for broader stakeholder forum and to work on this respective field, and that way also this is can be seen as a sustainability measure. And we have cascading fund schemes and a variety of projects, for instance, also in the one that is being currently in contracting phase of the call that are directed towards some coordinating activities, but also very many others applied. Next slide, please. Then, aside from our, let's say, competitive-based calls for proposals, we have also some initiatives where we identified already a specific beneficiary with a specific expertise, and so we have been funding since 1.5 years a project that is called Horizon 10, you might heard of, which is towards the establishment of an fair enabling repository. It has also become got a name now. It is called the EU Open Research Repository, and it enables Horizon Europe or EC's research program beneficiaries to put their research outputs, data, software, and anything else that comes out of their projects into this repository that guarantees standards according to the FAIR principle. This is being in the process still, being launched in the end of this year. And this has also been set up and is being set up still in a way of a co-design of early adopters. Find also here the link of this EU Open Research Repository. Next slide, please. And then, I mean, what I presented you up to now is more the measures taken towards sustainability and from the view of a research funder. But the Commission is also a partner within the EOSC partnership. And by such, it's also promoting sustainability by setting up specific measures that help to build up a network, that help build up the federation, that help to build up EOSC as such in the end, so that we have in the end something really operative. So on the one hand side, we are fostering also together with our partner, the EOSC Association, and also in collaboration with other member states and inside the EOSC board, networking activities. For instance, we are now having the yearly coordination meeting of the EOSC-related projects. There are workshops, conferences, winter schools, for instance, the one organized by the association last January. There's the Vademekung of coordination activities by the association. Of course, the broad range of branding and outreach activities. And then we are working very much towards building up the federation, which will provide the basis in itself as such to incorporate research results and project results by the federation being composed in the future of the EOSC-EU node, of national and regional nodes, thematic nodes or institutional nodes, and furthermore. So this is one side, and also maybe several of you know also that we are continuously discussing the future of EOSC after the finalization of Horizon Europe, which also incorporates broad discussions of the governance, how will we set up EOSC in the future, and how will we also anchor the research community and the outputs from the projects, clusters, and the research community in general on all levels, national, regional, institutional, into the governance. So these are some measures within, let's say, the partnership. Yeah, this is, I think, pretty much what I wanted to provide for as a conversation start, as you wished. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Katrien, for that overview, which was really dense of opportunities and possibilities. And yeah, for me, again, it also sketches the complexity of the landscape in which the projects need to navigate and find their way. But that is probably something for the discussion later on. So let's move over to another party in the tripartite construct, to the EOSC Association, and hear from Ilaria how the EOSC Association looks at project sustainability.
Thanks very much, and I'll try to present from my own computer. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so thanks a lot for the opportunity to be here and continue the conversations we started last year and that we had throughout the year, in fact. The association has set up a working group for supporting the projects in their quest to make an impact, let's say, in their endeavors to make impact. This goes through the sustainability of their results and what we call the key exploitable results. So what we have done in this year and a half is to establish the group and give it a place on the EOSC forum where exchanges could happen. Honestly, this is not working too much. We're not using this platform a lot, but we do keep in touch over email, and we do exchange and in practice work to develop the tools that we are designing together. So part of this suite of tools is the sustainable exploitation planning methodology that we have initially developed and presented at the EOSC Winter School 2024, where a lot of projects were present, and that we have continued to develop after the Winter School, and that we presented at the online meeting we had with the projects in June 2024. After that meeting, we went on to meet the Commission and the REA, and we continued the discussions that started in that meeting, and of which we will see a summary here later in the presentation. And here we are again in the new workshop of the impact synchronization for impacting synchronization workforce. So just briefly, I want to summarize the key takeaways that we leveraged from those meetings. And so initially we presented this sustainable exploitation planning tool, and we piloted it with the projects that were present in the June meeting. And this is not, of course, all that we could extract from that meeting, but just to mention that we had some 8 projects present, and that we had developed this methodology to be a bit more interactive than just a questionnaire. So we put it in a form of a survey, let's say, so you could interact with the software just to get prompt to respond to some questions. The result of this interaction can help a person who's expert to plan the sustainability pathways of a certain output, of a certain product. However, we understand that without support, let's say from our side, it could be difficult to envisage what the SEP can tell you. So we understand that ideally we would like to have an automatic tool that gives you the impression that your input creates on an algorithm. So if funding are available, we may try to develop that. I mean, the plans are in action. We'll see where we get. And if that happens, you'll hear about this in the Winter School 2025. In any event, you will certainly receive something that is applicable and educational, I would say, and because that is really the purpose of this methodology, to support non-experts in planning for sustainability. So we hope to get there in to be able to nurture that objective, even if we didn't manage to create an automatic tool that would be certainly costly. That would be the only reason why we could not achieve that. I want to share with you the output of the survey that we we give to our members, which is a survey on the key performance indicators of the EOSC partnership. I'm giving you this slide and these impressions because I understood from Ingrid that, you know, understanding the status of the implementation of the FAIR tools was an objective of this meeting. So perhaps there isn't a lot of, it's not a high resolution result that I can give you, but I can tell you that the association or the partnership monitors the achievement of the general objectives of the EOSC-A, which is to establish open science as the new norm, the implementation of standards, tools, and services for EOSC, and the establishment of the federation of open science, or an open science infrastructure. So we can see, I think, the implementation of FAIR principles, the adoption of those FAIR principles at all levels, the levels of the performing organizations as well as the funders, is going in the good direction, and most of the KPIs are in either achieved status or progressing rapidly in that direction. The standards and tools are also quite developed now. You don't see all the indicators that are implemented in this figure, but you can see this in a better form on the EOSC website monitoring web pages from tomorrow. And instead the federation establishment is at the time, at least is at the time of reference for this survey, which was 2021, was still not complete. This year, we will repeat this survey, and at the end of the presentation, there is a spoiler for the members of the association, members and observers, to take that survey and support us in understanding how this picture or pictures have evolved. So I also want to recall here the key takeaways that we leveraged from the meeting with REA and EC in June this year, in last June. And I think these points are important and are still on the table as elements of discussion for which we could try and devise some actions. So besides some general points on the fact that the planning and implementing the exploitation of project results is mandatory for the project guarantees, we also understand, and this was also reminded earlier, that this sustainable exploitation planning of the results should start early during the project lifetime and involve all the partners. And we also learned that the use of a planning tool is useful, and collaboration among projects is essential to make results exploitable and potentially sustainable. Here we have a few points that are really, I think, heavy. The EOSC Federation has a crucial role for the project sustainability pathways, because we said during our conversations that the EOSC Federation in the end is our ultimate client. And so if we don't know what the EOSC Federation looks like, what are the rules of participation, what is the governance of this federation, then it becomes extremely difficult for the projects to design really a pathway to exploitation or to impact. Another point that was important in the conversation was that of a label of certification, an EOSC quality certification, EOSC quality label, or an endorsement of the project's results. This is key because in some occasions, if a product was designed and was developed to suit the EOSC Federation or the EOSC EU node, we say today, or making EOSC function, and then there isn't any EOSC governance that can say, you know, this is fit for purpose, then it becomes questionable for even for the designers, for the project people to sell it in a way that is convincing. And here again, we're saying exactly this, that the EOSC governance uncertainty or the EOSC participation rules may drive the projects to look for different pathways for exploitation. So in the end, the establishment of a process is required. This is what the project said, to involve all the projects in the definition of an interoperability framework that maximizes the connections and facilitates the exploitation and the sustainability of the project results. So for that, in order to go in the direction of addressing those points, some ideas are here, and a lot of ideas were in Catherine's presentation. And I don't know if at the end of this meeting we could maybe decide to be proactive about some of an event or a process that could take us towards addressing those points. So the application of the methodology that we devised, or a planning tool, the establishment of a process to involve all the projects in the definition of the interoperability framework, the macro roadmap, the EC services and grants, and bringing specific issues at the next EOSC Winter School in 2025, or perhaps a joint EC association projects brokerage events where we could meet our potential, let's say, clients, persons, or projects or initiatives that could avail of what the projects are producing, and which could entail also the policymakers, shapers, and where we could provide further visibility. So with that, I leave it to the discussion, and I just put a spoiler here for the biennial KPI survey for the EOSC partnership. If you are a member or observer of the association, please try to respond to this questionnaire, because it helps us make our case for sustainability. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Ilaria, for this presentation. And I think it was nice to see that the variety of outputs that you mentioned from projects relates nicely, I think, with what Plago categorized for fair impact, the different, what did you call them, like aspects of sustainability, which on the one hand shows the richness of what comes from projects, but also gives way to quite some complexity when it comes to finding sustainability pathways.
Absolutely.
So
each case is unique, and we really need to, each case needs to, well, deserves an exploitation planning, and that needs to be careful.
Yeah. So are there any questions from the audience to any of the speakers? I don't see any hands raised as far as I can see. There is one question in the chat about the follow-up of First Fairs Fair. Then we have the Fair Impact project that really followed on Fairs Fair to a large extent. And the question is very flattering for us, of course, in the sense that it is asked whether this will get another continuation. And there was already an answer from Neil saying that with respect to the fair software related activities in Fair Impact, these partners are also involved in the eVerse project that I think from the top of my head continues a bit longer than Fair Impact. With respect to community building for core trustee and trustworthy repositories, I have good news. A new project will start in February, which is called Fidelis, with a focus on building a network of trustworthy repositories in Europe. I won't dive into that in any further detail, but be assured that something is going to continue on that front. I don't see any hands, although I don't think I can see everybody. So if there is anybody with a question for the three speakers, please speak. There was a lot of information, but probably it was all very clear. Let's see when we continue the broader discussion. So as you have hopefully seen, we have 3 questions identified along which we can structure the discussion today. And maybe we can have them on the next slide and show them, all 3 of them, to the audience, which are really closely related. The first one is, what does your project or initiative do to secure the sustainability of outcomes? The second focuses on the challenges that are faced with the exploitation of outputs. And the third one is about what do projects, initiatives need or expect from both the EOSC Association as well as maybe the funder and other relevant stakeholders to make sure that we keep things for the long time. Well, to start off the discussion, maybe it's nice to do that with a Menti. So we have the 3 questions in the form of a Menti question. The code for that Menti you can find in the chat, which is 25698499. So you can go there. I had a quick look this morning at the spreadsheet to see what kind of answers we have there when it comes to the activities that are undertaken to sustain project outcomes. And that already shows the variety again. So people talk about putting publications in repositories, hoping that outputs are being picked up with research groups, putting data that come from projects in trustworthy digital repositories. And there is also talk about community engagement and building networks. So a variety of activities. We very much do the same thing, try to do the same thing in Fair Impact, to think about different solutions for different outputs and functions. So I see on the screen, we do partnerships, rely on existing infrastructures, right? And it will be nice. I have seen in the list of participants just now that we have people, representatives from several projects in the room. So please also speak up, because it would be good to get some overview of what we are doing in this area. Also to catch that for the reporting before we turn to the challenges that we face. Yeah, there I see the trusted repositories turning back. Guidance and examples to help individual communities use and adopt outputs. The sharing, of course. Is there anybody in the audience or any project or initiative that explicitly uses tools and possibilities provided by the Commission, like, for example, the Horizon Booster? Are there people in the room that have experience with that? Silence all over. Nobody. We do not use any of the EU tools. What is Horizon Booster? Oh, maybe that is a question for the Commission to answer. Katrien, would you like to say something about that?
Actually, I'm not so well aware of the scene. Maybe Blago knows a bit better.
Basically, it's a tool designed to promote further your project results. I mean, it works differently in different types of projects. We all know that projects within EOSC and within research infrastructures are not as the other research projects, because we do not ourselves produce, let's say, new research data, but we kind of provide the framework in which researchers can share data, etc. So in that sense, I think Horizon Europe Booster will be important when you come up with, let's say, guidance on or standards or guidelines, but this is I'm not sure how that would work in the overall EOSC framework as well, because you're part of a bigger, let's say, superstructure in which those will be available. But generally, this is the aim of the tool, is to promote to a wider community your project results and to go a bit beyond your, let's say, direct clients, I would say. So it's a promotion tool, and they can also provide you with some advice on how to better increase impact. Again, I think maybe for this project and within the EOSC Federation nodes, there is a different type of pathway, but this doesn't mean that you cannot also go to the booster and propose them to somehow let's say, put forward the tangible results of the all, let's say, work that has been done, for example, on fair data. I mean, that is possible. But that's the main aim of the tool itself. A little bit different from our universe, but still could be used for good purpose, I think.
Thank you, Blago. I see Tommy's hand. Tommy, is your question also related to the booster or your comment?
No.
Okay, then I first want to go to Alex, and then I come back to you, Tommy. Alex, you added something about experience with the booster. Do you want to say a few words about that?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Ingrid. So with RDA Tiger, we have submitted an application. We got confirmation that we will receive the support. Our communications manager has had some initial conversations. However, I can't offer anything specific about the experience with it, as we are at very early stages of defining exactly how we will make use of this resource. I will keep you posted.
That would be nice. And then we will have some insight into the experiences with this instrument. Tommy, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the road here, but you were asking in general about thoughts we have related to the sustainability, I think. And so I'm coordinating FairCore for EOSC, and we developed 10 completely new services that are, well, fair enabling services that take FAIR further. And I think we touch on the FAIR letter several times over with the different services. And of course, the sustainability plans differ on a service-by-service basis. We have many different strategies that we're trying out to integrate them into the EOSC world. Some of these are by including our services in the portfolio of existing services, like with OpenAir, for example, the search functionalities that they're developing are going to be integrated, related to the RD graph, will be integrated there, and through that adopted perhaps through the procurement or something such. But we are very much facing the challenge that Ilaria pointed to, and that is, what do we integrate to right now? We wrote in our project plan that we will integrate with the EOSC platform, which kind of doesn't exist in its the way that it used to. And the federation is not yet set up, but we have a bit over half a year left. So now we might integrate to individual services that used to be part of the platform. But this is a very much kind of a source of insecurity for us, because we are having to rethink this all the time, how to best connect with the infrastructure, which isn't completely rolling yet. But we do have also services that we have spun up from zero, and they don't have existing frameworks to integrate to. Our initial thinking when we wrote the project was that these are something that are needed for EOSC, so then they will be sustained as a part of EOSC. And this is one of the things that we are running into, that we might have national actors which are developing a service, and one sustainability strategy might be to get it in use for that country, so that at least it will be provided in some limited context. But it is quite a big ask if individual national institutes would be operating large services for all of the European research playing field. So there is a bit of a gap here in how to really roll this out onto a wide audience. And that's one of the things that we really deal with right now.
Thanks for that comment, Tommy. And that brings us automatically, I think, to the second question, because that is about the challenges that are faced with respect to sustainability of what we do in projects. And so maybe we can have that question open now. And I think, well, I really relate to what you said from the perspective also of fair impact. I think more in general, many of the projects that are there to contribute, it's in their mission to contribute to building the EOSC in a very broad sense of the word, struggle with this element, because both of the complexity of EOSC, but also to a certain extent because of the target that is still very much, EOSC as a target that is still very much moving around. And Tommy gave the example from FAIRCORE for EOSC, where you have those components that need to fit into the EOSC, the EOSC infrastructure. The fair impact is a completely different project that is a coordination and support action. So we produce all kinds of recommendations and guidance. And of course, you can say this, once this is picked up by communities, that's fine. That is what we aim at. But to give you one example, one of the outputs of our project is to provide guidance for PID service providers. How they provide their services. Now, we are just a project, so when we go to the PID service providers, they say, well, yeah, you from Fair Impact can say that we need to do A, B, or C, but we would like to see some kind of an EOSC authority that says, yes, this is the way we will go into the future, so that also for those PID providers, it becomes interesting to invest in the suggestions that we produce from the project point of view. So it's, on the one hand, I think the uncertainty about the infrastructure, but on the other hand, it's also sometimes the lack of this authoritative voice that says, okay, this is like a stamp of approval. So I think with different kinds of project outputs, we have different issues, but they boil down to, well, that uncertainty on the one hand of things moving around, and on the second hand also of it being quite complicated. Even the Synchronisation Force that we are part of now is an instrument that has been around for quite a couple of years. That seems useful for quite a large audience. That will disappear when this project stops. So we've been thinking, where can we leave that? Who is going to pick that up? Not clear. So I think from that point of view, although there are many options, this still is also quite an obstacle in defining the way forward, both in terms of infrastructure as well as in terms of policy and recommendation. And I was struck by the fact that the handbook, the EOSC Federation handbook, was not mentioned in any of the presentations as far as I can remember, because to my mind, I really thought that that might be a good opportunity, at least for recommendations and policies, etc. If they were incorporated or referenced by such a handbook that has an official, let's say, EOSC approval, then at least for outputs like that, that could give some kind of reassurance to users that this is going to last, and that this set of recommendations or this policy will really be implemented for the longer term in EOSC. So I think that kind of reassurance and let's say like a stable custodian would be very beneficial for project outputs and for projects. The question, of course, is from whom should that come? So if anybody has any comments or follow-up or questions, please raise your hand, because I think this is an important topic for many projects, and there are many people from projects in the room, so it would be nice to hear your voice as well, so that we can bring all of this together also in some written piece that we can take further into the discussion also with the EOSC Association. So what do we have in terms of responses here? I can't read it from the screen. Can you go through it once again, Rita, from the top? Thank you. So really difficult to keep service demonstrators up and running beyond project lifetime. Exactly, that is again what I also saw in the spreadsheet, that people look for possibilities to curate information, to maintain platforms, etc., beyond trying to get to the next project. Multitude of project. Oops.
Hand raised from Javier.
Javier, go ahead. Yes, please.
Hello, good morning. Well, I'm speaking as from my experience in FNS Cloud, where I was leading the work package aid related to sustainability and governance. And I think that this is a very recurring question, the sustainability of what's going on with the projects. And the conclusions that we arrived were, first of all, you need a huge community, a big community, a very, very interested community, and depending on the community you have, you will have more possibilities or not to go on with your project. Because if not, what you're going to do, if you only depend on the financing system that comes from the European Union, then you will enter into what we called the dark digital ages, which were, okay, we've done all this work, and now who's going to follow it? Nobody's going to do it, depending on what kind of the project, what part of the project we are going to speak about. For example, as you before said, recommendations are very easy. You just put them there and perhaps they can be followed or not. So the same more or less happens with ontologies. Ontologies, you host it in GitHub, so you depend on free riding in another system. That's not going to cost you anything. And if the community broadly adopts the ontology, then well done, you've got something there. More difficult with the tools and very, very, very difficult with the services. Regarding the tools, if the tools are free software, okay, you can put them on also in GitHub, but that with also the ontologies will lead to another question, which is data sovereignty. What's going to happen if one day GitHub disappears? So you have to have the control about the data, the outcomes of your project in the form of software. And then also, if you're providing tools, is a different thing. Who's going to use the tool? Who is using the tool? Who adapts the tool? Who updates the tools? Who is going to be in charge of the bugs and the possibility of development of the tools? That is not very clear. And if we are speaking about services, if the services are based on the know-how over the tools, then we again follow into the same problem. So in order to study sustainability, what we did is we saw what were the different parts of the projects that could be maintained and how. Of course, there's always this analysis that can be done through a minimum viable product and then a more developed one, and try to see if the core is also being able to, you will be able to sustain, and which parts of what has been built can be adapted or can be still managed by the participants in the consortium, which by the way leads us to problems in intellectual property, who did what, who owns what, etc., etc. But that could be another different point, because a consortium is not a legal entity, therefore who are going to have the legal rights to use all that, and how, what would be the conditions. Therefore, what we proposed was a letter of intentions of all the members of the consortium that in the end it wasn't signed by the majority. So we stuck there another different stone. So it's a very, very complicated issue, and I think that it has to be analyzed case by case, but not only case by case in the sense of the project, but inside a project, what is the part of the project that could receive sustainable support. And of course, again, I repeat the main idea, and the main idea is the community.
Thank you very much, Javier, for that contribution. And I think you sketched the richness again of outputs and of opportunities and possibilities. With respect to communities, I agree. But it's then still, if you work in the context of EOSC, I think that EOSC endorsement might be beneficial, even if communities themselves seem to pick it up. I see that Maggie agrees plus 100 with you and also would like to speak. So Maggie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ingrid. I just wanted to say that I think that projects, because of the relatively long timeline of them, I mean, you get money for 3 or 4 years, for instance, and even before you can start, it can be more than a year since you actually wrote your project proposal. And I think often projects are a bit caught by surprise by when you approach the end of your funded period, that, oh dear, we should really have some possibility to sustain the lifetime of, say, a demonstrator or some kind of web service that you have built up. Because what you initially thought was only going to be a demonstrator interesting for service developers actually turns out that the community can use the demonstrator even if it's still in a sort of early stage. And then there is no money, there is no time, there is no good platform available, and then everything dissolves into sort of chaos and frustration at the end. So I think we also in projects we need to really revisit these things periodically every year, and not just because we're going to be reviewed by the project office, but really to look into these things so that we are better prepared to serve our end user communities if we come up with something that is really nice.
Yeah, I agree completely with you, Maggie. And we've tried to do that in Fair Impact to start early on with this, but that's also not always easy in a sense that especially during the first year, you don't know yet what is coming out of this project and what is going to be successful and what is not. So yeah, for sure, you need to think about that from day one, but along the way, it becomes more clear what the success numbers are and where you want to achieve specifically that sustainability. Yeah. Javier also talked about issues around tools, and Maggie mentioned prototypes that certainly seem to be successful during the project, and then you want to maintain that after the project also for communities that are using it. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak a little more to that point, who has experience in that project with prototypes and tools? I saw people from Fair Ease here as well. I don't know if there is anything that can be brought to the table from experience from Fair Ease. Did I see Alessandro in the room? Or was I wrong there?
Yes, I'm there. Hello, good afternoon, Ingrid.
Would be
Yes,
nice
what can I say? Yes, what can I say about Fair Ease and sustainability? Indeed, we started quite late in our project to advise this topic. I think that it's wrong, because normally we should start since the beginning of the project talking about sustainability. But Fair Ease is quite particular because what we are talking about is services, and what we are going to do is in the integration of services, pre-operational services, and then then probably the service already have some sustainability impact pathway already defined. But the problem we have is essential concerning the different results is in relation to resources, because exactly as been said before, The question is how the communities can eventually adopt the different solution we are implementing and develop. This is the major question, but after that, the question is how can eventually the services be developed, implemented, and maintained after the end of the project. Our question then is just to define a pathway that can be also sustained after the end of phase, but we don't have any solution for the moment. But we are spending a lot of time talking about sustainability because it's the hot topic of from our project. And what else? I completely agree with what Tommy said, Javier said before. We don't have any special magic solution for the moment. We are investigating every components and every parts of the project in terms of define a specific and very focused pathway for each component, because we can't have a general impact pathway for all the results from the project, because the results quite different one from another, of course, and they can have different also pathway. For that, is the most difficult thing is just to define the best way to make these services really operational and sustainable at the end of the project. And every service, every result should have a different pathway for sustainability. And for that is not so easy, because these results are the results of joint work, of course, from the consortium, but probably they will be sustained after that by individual partners and national partners, and then what else? For the moment, we don't have any special solution, but we are investigating and we are working hard on that.
Thank you very much. So that really resonates also with what we heard from Verkor for EOSC, I think, and a little bit
yes,
also
exactly.
impact. So in that sense, we are dealing with the same kind of issues.
Sure.
I also saw somebody who said it's not that difficult because we have the community uptake. I can't see it now anymore. Ooh. Was it a bit lower? I don't see it anymore. Are there any further comments to make? Are there challenges that we didn't touch upon yet that anybody wants to bring forward? Then maybe it's time to go to the final question, which is of course related to the challenges, namely what then do we need from relevant stakeholders and maybe also from the EOSC Association? From the point of view of fair impact, I think the need is on the one hand to have some clarity about where we are going with the EOSC Federation. We struggle a little bit also with things moving around. So to give you one example, the task forces, we have thought at the start of the project that there would be a PIT task force, and all of a sudden the PIT task force was gone. So that is one example of where we thought we could bring our recommendations, and then that entity is no longer existent. Same, we had a little bit, for example, with the EOS, with a catalog, a fair implementation catalog that we started, which was really structured so that it could feed into the EOS catalog. That then changed. So you see this shifting environment, which makes us navigate as well. So the more, I think, security we can get in terms of what is coming towards us, the more easier it becomes to really figure out the most impactful sustainability pathway. I see the handbook appearing. We are reinventing wheels all the time. Who put this comment in? Is that somebody who wants to talk a little bit about that, or is that somebody who wants to remain anonymous?
No, it's me,
Hey,
Carol
Carol.
Goebel. Hello.
Oh,
Yeah. So yes, so listening to the conversation, which was very interesting, but many of the things that we're raising, of course, have been raised many times before in sustainability, and not just in Europe, throughout the whole world. And there are many kind of guidelines and handbooks about how to think about sustainability in a holistic way. And I just put one link in that. So I think actually a useful thing is a handbook to help to think about. We have handbooks for all sorts of things, but really, this is we have handbooks for impact, but we don't have handbooks for sustainability methodologies, because you have to build them in at the beginning, not the end. So I wonder if there's something there we could do, Ingrid, really pulling together knowledge in this area.
I have that on my in my notes, Carol, thinking about catching the experience also that we now have had in a couple of projects, and that we will certainly have with the first ones of this series that finish up. I think amongst us, we have quite some experience about, what works and what certainly doesn't work. So to capture that together, I think would be great also for projects yet to come or yet to deal with these topics. So I would be very much in favor of seeing whether we can pull that off.
Yeah, good.
And that could be something maybe also to discuss during the winter school, because I think I saw that as one of the suggestions from Ilaria on one of her final slides. So looking around the room, would there be interest in an endeavor like that? Are there more people who think that could be worthwhile? Ilaria.
Yep.
That was something you had on your list of possibilities, to do something at the winter school.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So that might be something to discuss there, to see if we can also, as projects, provide input for a handbook or a document on best practices or experiences, etc.
Absolutely, yes, and especially because I'm sorry that I let your question somewhat fall in the void, but I don't have the necessary knowledge about how to respond. But in my knowledge, as of Friday, the steering board has decided to take this handbook, and Catherine, I don't know, perhaps can help us gain some information, has decided to take the handbook writing on its own hands and not to share it with the association. In this respect, I would like to ask perhaps Catherine if she's knowledgeable about the situation, whether we can envisage that the projects will have an avenue, which may be through the association producing a position paper or something like some information regardless of the situation, or whether perhaps the Commission is envisioning a specific path for the projects to contribute to this handbook, or maybe not.
Catherine, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, with regard to the Federation handbook, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit surprised by the question, because I mean, the Federation handbook as such is not mainly in the hand of the Commission, but indeed of the association, or of the tripartite. So it wouldn't be really our decision on defining that. Nevertheless, I mean, I think all important stakeholders should be involved in contributing to the content of the handbook, and in this respect, at a certain stage, I think, of course, this should take place, right? But I mean, the handbook is the organization at the moment is I mean, it's a process that was defined already by the association. It is a writing team present. There's a reviewing team present. I think would be more I mean, of course, with us and together in the tripartite group, we are discussing all these issues regularly. And we can bring in this within this context, of course, but I think there's, it's not only us. I mean, this is, I think, something that we can jointly decide at what stage and, you know, and which extent and at what level it makes sense to include the projects, of course.
Thanks a lot, Catherine. Sorry, Ingrid, if I continue just this conversation, because I was also thinking about this possibility of what we could do in the Winter School 2025. And perhaps we could envision some, let's say, final recipients, final uptakers, or whether they are people, initiatives, organizations, projects, whatever they are. The handbook could be one of these recipients, and see which projects can contribute to those recipients, and then start to design how that input into that specific recipient happens. And so then we would have a product that could be ready to go into the right direction. But we can elaborate on this further, and perhaps we can have a meeting early enough with the projects, with all the projects, and decide where we want to take the Winter School 2025.
Yeah. And in a sense, I think a good development is that the at least the chapter on governance is now extended for the handbook with more practical stuff, policies and rules of participation, etc. And I think there the projects will probably have outputs that are really fitting. I see Javier's hand again. Javier, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just a very, very quick remark. What I have been seeing is that, according to the Commission, what they are really worried is about the valorization of intellectual property. So I think that the handbook fits in my philosophy, but it does not fit in the philosophy of the IP that is thought by the European Commission, because they are again having the same epistemic blindness that happens with free software. When we're speaking about infrastructures, nobody is making a valorization of the free infrastructures. The free infrastructures, as you do not sell them, it's just like as they do not count. And we are all using TCP IP in this connection. If we did not have TCP IP, we would not be able to maintain this meeting. Therefore, how much does TCP IP? How could we valorize that? And that is always missing. We only valorize what we can sell. Therefore, this is something, that kind of philosophy that is inserted into the open science. Open science, what we always say is that we need a change of paradigm, and that we need to change the way we are thinking. So this is a good way to push through. Could you please wait until the valorization of commercial aspects? And perhaps the most important thing is to defend and to structure all the needs that we need in the infrastructure. It just is taken for granted, and it's huge billions of euros. We would not be able to build it up again with money.
Hear, hear. Thank you for pointing that out once again. Thank you. Looking at the time, we are through the 90 minutes that we had for this conversation. I think we haven't, there is still a lot to say and a lot to discuss. So there were very good points at the table. We haven't addressed all of them. I think we haven't addressed the majority, because there was also quite some input in the Menti that I did not touch upon. There is input in the spreadsheet, and probably also in the notes that I haven't looked at yet. So I think we need to find places to continue this discussion between the projects, the association, and the Commission, and the Winter School might be a good next opportunity for that. Of course, we will capture this discussion in the report, and you are all invited also to be at the plenary session, where we will discuss the recommendations also from this session. I would like to thank the speakers very much for kicking us off today. Thank you for your time. Also, thank you to all of you for your contributions by participating in the discussion or in the different instruments that we had available to put your input. And remember that you can still provide input until the 7th of November in the notes and also in the spreadsheet. So thank you all very much for being here and for contributing, and I wish you a very good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
a lot.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.